as Julia said, my name is Emily Comeau, and I'm a doctoral student at UBC Okanagan in Western Canada. And my co-authors are Tamis Cochrane, who's an archivist at Taku River Tlingit First Nation, and Dr. Christine Schreyer at UBC Okanagan. And unfortunately, they're unable to join us in person today, but they are online. I saw them on the Zoom call. And so I'll be sharing a video shortly that they pre-recorded, so they'll still be talking to you, but it's a recording. So today we're going to tell you a bit about the Oral Histories Project and some of the initiatives that we're working on to mobilize the information that we're finding in the Oral Histories Project, particularly around place names. So the Oral Histories Project started about 3 years ago. And what we're doing is we're transcribing a huge archive of audio recordings that were made in the 70s, 1970s, 80s, and 90s. And so many of these recordings are of elders who have since passed on, and they contain varying degrees of Tlingit speech as well. And so the elders often talk about Tlingit place names as well as history and connection to the land. And so the recordings that I work with more are the ones that contain more of the place names information. So just to give you an idea of where we are in the world, Taku River Tlingit First Nation is up here. This is BC, British Columbia in Western Canada, and Taku River Tlingit First Nation is way at the top there. And Taku River Tlingit territory extends across both the provincial boundary with Yukon Territory and the international border with the United States and Alaska. So it's a huge territory. Christine and I are based at UBC Okanagan, which is down here in Kelowna, but I actually live in Victoria right here. And Tamis lives in Vancouver over here. So it's not often that we get to see each other in person, especially up in Tlingit territory, so it's always wonderful when we do. So I'm going to pass it over to Christine and Tamis, and they're recording now to talk about some of their work. And then after that, I'm going to wrap up by telling you about some of the other projects we're doing, one of the projects especially that I'm working on right now. And then we'll wrap up. So I don't know if it auto plays.
The Taku River Tlingit Place Names website. This is the cover photo. It is using a program called GeoLive, and this documented both why place names were important to people in an effort working to reclaim these place names. And so the first task was to document all of the place names we had available to us within binders in the Heritage Archive, as well as through recordings, some of which had been digitized and transcribed. And we built this with my colleague, John Corbett, a geographer. This is a program that he's developed, and it documented around 300 place names we had at the time. This is the revised version of the website. It was originally called GeoLive, and that is what many people refer to it as in the community. And now we've moved over to a new version of that website. We built it originally in 2012, so it's been 10 years, and it's held up remarkably well. And now we're moving over to this newer version, which gives us more capabilities of having different technologies involved. So when you clicked on the points, they would be either clustered or individually placed. You can toggle between them, and they would provide you information about the Tlingit place name. This is Kiyan, which you saw in that original slide. There was a painting at the bottom, and Kiyan, it means hemlock grows around the bottom. And originally it had an English name. And so part of this work has been leading to collect all of these names from the Heritage Archive and from the oral histories so that we could reclaim them onto official government maps. And that has occurred with this name, Kiyan. We also here connect that information. You can see the card at the bottom, Watzik, which means caribou. And this is from that original board game back here. The area where the caribou was around Kiyan. And so the resources and the game all connected together to help people with language revitalization. We also marked each type of feature on the land, so mountain, lake, river, island, bay, whatever it was, we had these little keywords so you could also help you learn those individual words for items. There are photos of the place and then the audio recording. If you go to the website, you can hear Elder Jackie Williams, I believe, is saying Kiyan. I think it's Jackie. And then it tells you who they were and where it was recorded. So we embed the information from the oral histories into the place names website. So this work, as I said, was then to help reclaim the language into the land and into people's wider knowledges and to have this reclaimed on government maps. So one of the first partnerships we had was with BC Parks and Recreation. And in the summer of 2012, around the time the website was launching, they were redoing the signage in the area for the rec sites, the camping sites where you can go and camp around the area of Atlin. And they wanted to add the traditional Tlingit name onto these sites as well. So you can see in the blue, the traditional Tlingit name for all of these rec sites, as well as site description. So at the bottom, it says Atlen, which you saw on our cover slide, which is Big Lake. As well, they put up these wood signs. This is Louise Gordon, one of the land directors at the time, who is now a Wolf Plan director for her community. And she was very highly involved with the board game and in getting these parks signs up. So this is the sign for Warm Bay, which is a British Columbia recreation site. And the name in Tlingit is Yat Aihin Gi. And this is now Warm Bay's official name. So that is where we have led to since 2012, is that we have submitted to the BC government 42 names to be reclaimed onto BC's maps, although only 14, one was done a couple of years earlier, have been put back on the map. But this was something that occurred last summer in July of 2023, and it was very exciting. You can see the map here of all the different names that were reclaimed, and we are still working on having more of those put back onto BC maps. Over to Tammy.
Gnaftish, Hashuka, Gnaftish, Hashagun. Thank you, my ancestors and all those who came before me. Gnaftish, Akaniyan. Thank you, my opposites. Gnaftish, Akunhiyan. Thank you, my clan relatives. Gnaftish, Anyatkusani. Thank you, precious children of the land, wherever you may be from. Leitka Kenak Tami Yuhat Duasak. My name is Tamis in English. Yanyadi Shawatatsati. I am a woman of the Wolf Clan of the Yanyadi. Taku Kwan Owe Uhan. My people originate from the Taku River, and we are part of the Taku Kwan. Vancouver Yehat Kudzati. I was born in Vancouver. Surrey Yehatyati. Kwantlen Ka Samiamu Anik Yehatyati. I currently live and work on the unceded territories of the Kwantlen and Semiahmoo nations in Surrey, British Columbia. Ahliku Hashikalnigi Datye Jikani. I work amongst the voices of my ancestors. Tlingit Shtuhaltu Hatkia Atke. I'm learning Tlingit. Can you understand me? Gnaftish Ldika Aktu At Latu. Thank you, all of my teachers. Next slide, please. I just want to take a moment to recognize again the positionality. So the dot that is in the middle on the south part of the map here, that is where I live. And the dot that is in the far top left of the map is my traditional territory. I was born in Vancouver. I was raised on Vancouver Island, and I still live and work in the Metro Vancouver area. So very far away from my traditional territory. The oral histories has provided me with an opportunity to better understand my own identity, my culture, and how my ancestors used the resources which were available to them in various parts of the territory. Language and the archives has provided a way to bridge that geographic distance, which colonial policies has created a separation of. Next slide, please. This is a really lovely photo that I found within the archives of the Royal BC Museum. I was going through their collection and looking at what photographs they had that were archival of the territory. This particular one, when I flipped it over and looked on the back, I found an annotation which was made by one of our previous community researchers that talks about where this particular location is. So this is Sandbar, It's also known as Geese Bay, and it actually has a Tlingit name as well. Its Tlingit name is Tawak Kalaku, which means goose flood. So where the geese come to molt. And you can see written on the back of the card here is Geese Bay. They lose their feathers here and they stay to feed. And that is per Auntie Elizabeth Nyman, who is one of the more prolific recordings that we have of her within our collection. And we're about to hear some of her words in just a moment as well. So this tells me about what happens in this part of my territory, and I have a visual, and this was surfaced from the archives. Shagik Shah Stingy Mountain is one of the earliest examples where the importance of place names within our archives and oral histories really stood out to me. I will let Elizabeth Nyman explain the meaning behind this mountain in her own words.
And you see, right across 14 Mark Pond, kind of sideways that way, that one they call them Shipley Rishaw, Stingy Mountain.
Oh, that's the one with the sheep on it over there, eh? About sheep?
They say goat or sheep, you can't get it if you shoot it or kill it. It go down the mountain and it's nothing left by the time you get there.
Sure.
All too steep.
So what this recording has just let us know is that the name of this mountain's origins come from generations of my ancestors having lived in the area. We know that there's sheep and mountain goats on this mountain, and it's got its name from the fact that the particular way the rock formations on this mountain are mean that when you hunt on it, either you're not going to be able to get to what you have killed because of the way that it falls, or by the time you get to what you have just hunted, there won't be anything salvageable left. So they knew not to hunt on this mountain. It's a nuanced understanding of the way that they understood not only the resources that were available to them, but the landscape and the terrain itself as well throughout the territory. Next slide, please.
And you see right across.
As part of my work from the Oral Histories project, place names is very important to me as somebody coming home to community for sure. I know that I'm not the only citizen that has been geographically separated from the territory and from my elders, however. So what I've been working to do is make sure that they are available to other citizens of the Taku River Tlingit through this content management system. It is a Mukadu-based platform, and this has the opportunity to bridge that geographical divide for others who are looking to reconnect with their culture, language, and heritage. Chish.
Okay. All right, thanks. So those are some of the projects that we're working on. We're also just getting started with building a dictionary based on the audio recordings, and that's going to live on the Mooker2 site as well. So there is a dictionary tab here that Tamis has already built in, and we're going to get started on that really soon. So I just want to quickly tell you about one of the other projects that I've been working on. And this is a collaborative project with the Taku River Tlingit First Nation land guardians who work on land stewardship on the territory. And so it's an extension of the GeoLive map that Christine was talking about, but the GeoLive map is web-based, so it can't be used out on the land. And so what the land guardians were finding was that there's all this really useful information on the GeoLive map, but they can't access it when they're out doing their work on the land. There's no internet access, there's no cellular data at all. And so they were looking for a mobile offline version that they could take with them. And so that's something that I've been working on. This is a prototype that I made earlier this spring. And I'm just going to breeze through this. But if you'd like to see how this works, I have it on my phone so I can show you afterwards. So we'll be adding more to the GeoLive map and the mobile app from the oral histories recordings, because we're finding more and more new place names that we had not seen before, that weren't documented before. So they're known in the community, they're knowledge that is there, but they haven't been written down before. So We will hopefully be adding a lot more place names to the map and to the app as well in the future. And so this is just an example of some of the work that I do with the Oral Histories Project. So as a linguist on the team, when there's a recording that has more Tlingit in it, or that sounds like it has maybe a place name, it gets sent to me, and then I can transcribe it in International Phonetic Alphabet and then try to analyze the morphemes and figure out what's happening. And so this is like super tidied up. This is not what my notes look like, but this is what the process sort of looks like. So this place name, Giwethiadin Kwask, this means there may be fiddlehead ferns over here. So we don't know exactly where this is yet, because there's only been one recording that we've heard this in, but this is the kind of information that could be really useful to land guardians and to everyone in general in the community, but especially land guardians, because they monitor land use and landscape change. So if we know that in the past there have been fiddlehead ferns here, maybe why are there not now, or are there fiddlehead ferns here still, you know? And that can also help us to figure out where this is, if there's still fiddlehead ferns here. So just the final slide, it's pretty small, but this is the spreadsheet that we have. That is, this is where we collect all of the new place names that we're finding in the recordings. So we add the Sealaska writing, so that's the orthography that's generally used now, and all the information that we have. The speaker from the recording is, most of these are Elizabeth Nyman, and that's who you heard from Tamis's recording. And then the phonetic writing as best we can. And then the meaning, if we can find it in English. The location, again, if it's clear in the recording, and some of them are not super clear. But the more of this information we find in multiple recordings, the more we can kind of pinpoint where these places are. And yeah, so this spreadsheet is growing more and more every week, and hopefully these names will make it onto the maps really soon. And Gunas Chish, thank you.
Excellent talk. Thank you, Emily, Tamis, and Christine. Are there any questions? Yes.
Could you show us the dictionary slide again?
Sure.
Yes, this one would be, no, the one with the table,
Oh, the Excel.
Excellent, yes. This would be a nice, yeah, you could make it in Dictionaria, so you would be able to click either the Sealaska writing, yeah, or you can click maybe the location name, and then you get all this. And in Dictionaria, you could also have a phonetic, what's called, you could not only click here, but then listen to it. And so it would be a multifunctional dictionary. And you could have it then on your smartphone and click, for instance, as I just mentioned, the location, and then here listen to the pronunciation of the name, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Is the Dictionary app something that you can load locally onto your mobile phone?
Yes, I have the dictionary here on my mobile.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good to know. Yeah, yeah. I'll have to bring that. We're meeting in a couple of weeks, so Tamis is listening. So yeah, thanks.
Just Google Dictionaria, and then you find the addresses and everything you need to know.
Okay. Dictionaria. Great.
All right, I have another question here.
Thank you for your interesting talk. A good friend of mine back in London works for the National Geographic Society, and through her I get the impression that it can actually be very difficult to change place names on maps and so on.
Yeah.
So I was wondering whether you could talk a bit about your interaction with government organizations and how receptive they have been to the work that you've done,
Right.
and also whether you have been in touch with Google, etc., and have looked to make your mark on Google Maps and so on.
That's a great question. I know Christine is on Zoom. She's the one who is spearheading that, so I don't know if we want to see if Christine has something to respond there. Yeah. I know it was a long process for sure, getting the maps or getting the names on the provincially approved maps. Okay,
I
good.
am, if you can
Good,
hear
good.
me. Yeah, the government has been very receptive. There are policies in place to change Indigenous names or other names, and so we follow that. It is a slow process. It took about 5 years to get, we submitted 42 names at once to be reclaimed, and the toponymist at the time told me she normally gets 42 in a year. Luckily, it then doubled the staff in that office, and there have been more movement since then. The provincial toponymist name is Trent Thomas, and he's very, very supportive of reclaiming Indigenous place names. He is Indigenous himself from another area in northern BC. And we haven't spoken to Google, but I did hear that the names should be updating. Someone, I forget who it was, told me that the names now are searchable in Google through the BC's geographic namespace. And I see Tamis was there too. I don't know if she wants to add anything.
Excellent. Thank you. We have time for another question.
Hi, thank you for this. I wonder if in learning more about this place name information from the recordings that you've been going through, if you have encountered place names from outside the area that you might have expected. And I just in the case of Peru that I'm more familiar with, there have been several cases of say there being Indigenous place names for the areas around Lima in languages that are now spoken on the eastern side of the Andean slopes, for example. And if so, what that means for you, or maybe you've not encountered such things.
Yeah, thanks. So that's a great question. I'll speak from my experience working as a transcription assistant, and then I think maybe Tamis and Christine has something to say too. But we do often hear names that are not necessarily from the immediate area, and I know that there's been contact with Tahltan names or with Tahltan communities as well for centuries or millennia, and so sometimes we'll hear Tahltan names and we don't really know how to deal with that yet. Like I mentioned, the territory crosses the boundaries, the provincial and the national boundaries. So we can't really submit to change the names on the other side of either of those boundaries. So we can really only do that in BC. So that kind of limits what we can do there. But yeah, that's my experience of it. I don't know if Christina or Tamis, you wanted to add anything.
So there is a comment in the chat by Hugo from Wikimedia France, and he mentions that OpenStreetMaps allows contributors to add native place names if so exists.
I mean, we do add names to GeoLive is not limited by provincial or national boundaries, so there are names in the whole territory that we can add on GeoLive, but it's not like an official provincial map or anything.
Okay, I think that's our time for today. I would like to thank Emily, Tamis, and Christine for this great talk, and give them another round of applause, please.